Hello all and welcome, and I am the MGTOW Philosopher. And in this video I'd like to talk about why white knights, manginas, and cucks hate MGTOW and express that hate with such vitriol. And by the way, from this point forward, I'm simply going to refer to them all as white knights, simply for convenience's sake. Now I think part of the blowback is from how MGTOW tend to react to the attacks of white knights, who they consider to be part of the problem. For example, guys they see as helping women to advance feminist agendas instead of looking out for their fellow men, or guys they view as getting in the way by funding women's irresponsibility, meaning guys who continue to provide women with their resources when there's really nothing in it for them, or guys who push other men to get into the same bad business deal because they don't know any better or because misery loves company. These are guys that I see MGTOW most often attacking, which to be honest I don't approve of. I think is the cause of some of the negativity we get from white knights. If you're constantly attacking someone, either directly or indirectly, you're going to create some friction, which will manifest itself in the form of these white knights who feel like they're being attacked, then going out of their way to attack MGTOW, either directly, meaning attacking specific people, or indirectly, in the form of attacking MGTOW ideas. Now, that's not to say that MGTOW guys aren't correct in their beef with white knights. They are to a certain extent. That's also not to say that the majority of attacks don't come from white knights. They do. I simply don't think it helps to do more than simply defend yourself when attacked and speak out about the problem without stooping to extremely negative character attacks when you're not being provoked or attacked. And by the way, I have no problem with doing so in self-defense. I just don't approve of unprovoked personal attacks, as I think it makes hearing the other person less possible, not more. Anyhow, white knights, they do make real change very difficult. They also make change in the system via voting nearly impossible, as women are getting enough of what they need from the white knights in the form of resources that they'll never change. And they'll never vote to change the system either. In turn, white knights ensure that society will fall, as again, women will never vote to change things so long as enough men go along with women's demands simply for the sake of getting access to the woman's vagina, or in hopes of living the white picket fence dream so many naive men still cling to, a dream that died long ago and no longer exists. So yes, MGTOW guys do have good reason to be peeved with white knights, meaning guys who willingly choose to remain on the proverbial plantation so as to fulfill what they feel are society's expectations of them, to be good little men who sacrifice themselves and thereby man up and become real men, a position in society that's not only not rewarded anymore, but is actually mocked, as men are portrayed as fools and losers, regardless of what they've accomplished in their lives. Yet, you as a man should still sign up for what's essentially a bad business deal, even though you're being treated like crap? I think not. It's exactly this lack of self-awareness and critical thinking on the part of white knights that peeves MGTOW men. While we see that the system and women simply use and abuse men for their own purposes, white knights seem blind, willfully blind. They embrace their own captivity, choosing to empower the very system that seems to hate them. They do so without any consideration of the consequences their actions might have for other men. As for the consequences to themselves, well, they feel they found that special love, that love that will last forever. And while everyone else's marriages and relationships fail, well, he's somehow gotten lucky and found that special unicorn, that one in a million. It's the recognition of this truth, a truth that is obvious to red pill men, that pisses many of us red pill men off and makes some MGTOW guys want to lash out at white knights because they don't see it. They choose to be willfully blind to it in many cases. However, throwing out pejoratives like cuck, simp, or mangina, that doesn't really help matters either, and only provokes the other person to reply in kind. More reasoned responses, or more reasoned and well thought out speech from the first, would probably do a lot more to foster understanding than outright hostility and attacks. So, that's reason number one why I think many white knights hate MGTOW. Too much inflammatory language from our side against them instead of being more reasoned in our speech towards them. I'm not saying that white knights don't attack MGTOW men. No. In fact, they attack MGTOW much more often. No. I'm simply stating one of the reasons they dislike us and attack MGTOW so much. Now, the next reason I think that many white knights don't like MGTOW is simply because by just existing, MGTOW helps to throw a spotlight on them, casting them in the light of people who have made a mistake simply by having kids with and or being married to a woman. Now, that's essentially what MGTOW itself is all about, walking away from women. And while most MGTOW can't agree on much, we can agree on the fundamental core values that define MGTOW. Don't live with a woman. Don't have kids with a woman. Don't marry a woman. Don't give her anything or put yourself into a position where she can get access to your resources. And it's those fundamental tenets that call into question the personal decisions a guy who is doing all of the above has made. Hence, some white knights feel personally attacked just by the existence of MGTOW and in turn will lash out. It's childish, yes, but that's one of the reasons you see white knights lashing out at us for seemingly no reason. Now, keep in mind that for millennia, the white knight approach to women on men's behalf has been the norm, and such men have been lauded by society as the quintessential man, the man you should aspire to be. That expectation hasn't changed, but the world has. Sadly, many men have failed to change with it and continue to see self-sacrifice for zero payoff as the way to go. MGTOW says their sacrifice is a waste of time, and is in fact damaging to both them and other men. So that's another reason why white knights go out of their way to attack MGTOW. They see the teachings of MGTOW as some kind of personal attack on them. So, next reason. Doubt. That's right, doubt. MGTOW makes some white knights doubt the veracity of their decisions about how they've lived their lives. No one likes to be made to doubt themselves. Some people will lash out at the person who gave them the information that made them doubt themselves in the first place, essentially attack the messenger. Now, another reason that white knights attack MGTOW is because it's the truth. Now, all of us men that are red-pilled know very well that the system is rigged and that to play is to simply make a bad bet that'll lead, more than likely, to you losing all of your money. And unlike in a casino where you can decide how much you bet, in this game, in the game of marriage, you must put it all on black and hope for the best. However, when it comes to marriage, there's not 2 colors, there's 15 color choices. So your odds just went from 1 in 2 to 1 in 15. Sound like good odds? Generally speaking, people are only personally insulted by the truth. If someone lies, I might find it funny, and I might rebut them, but I won't get offended. I mean, why should I? Their words are lies, and lies don't bother me. Unless it's some form of slander that could damage my name, that's a different matter. Anyhow, the truth hurts. It especially hurts white knight men. After all, they've been sold a false bill of goods their entire lives. Be a good man, do what's expected of you, and you'll be happy. Then they do all of it, get Zippo in most cases, and instead of seeing that the system is rigged against them, many end up blaming themselves instead and signing up to take the tour yet again. It's akin to religious behavior that you see from someone who's lost their faith, but blames themselves instead of the fact that there's simply no proof to back up the belief they have in the first place. Hence, many a man will invest his time and money in what's a sure loser. Except for that rare exception, of course. He'll do this again and again. Yes, he could admit that he was mistaken, that society was mistaken, that the culture, the media, the government, that they were all mistaken. However, white knights want to justify their already exorbitant investment and get some kind of return out of it so that they can continue to tell themselves that they haven't wasted their lives and that they weren't wrong. They weren't misled. They didn't make a mistake. Oh, no. Sadly, all that really happens is they end up wasting even more of their lives. Heck, many die without realizing the fault wasn't theirs. And many never come to realize that it's a game they were unlikely to win in the first place. All based on lies. That far more people win the game than actually do. That is the lie. Yet, yes, some people do win the lottery. But so what? It doesn't change the fact that most people won't. And if you think you'll be a winner, then you have been suckered, and you are a sucker. And that's what's happened to white knight men. They've been suckered. Raised by single moms or dads who were also white knights, indoctrinated by an educational system that tells them men are bad, a media that tells them masculinity is toxic, and you need to do this, that, and this to be a good man in our so-called progressive culture. All the while, man has been taught to act against his own best interests, and that it's noble to sacrifice himself for the good of everyone else, except the person who should be the most important to him, which is himself. If anything, the white knight should be pitied. And that's another reason why white knights dislike MGTOW. They see many of us as pitying them. You have to understand that a lot of these white knights are young guys who don't see what a lot of us older guys have seen. They don't have the life experience we have. They don't know what things used to be like before feminism took hold. So to them, this way of life is normal. The way things are now is normal, and if you attack that normality, you're attacking them. And if you feel sorry for them, they'll feel self-conscious. Then they'll get angry, and then they'll reply with what they feel is being directed at them and say to you, "You are the one that should be pitied, not me. You pathetic woman-hating loser, you. You just can't get a woman, so you want to pretend like you're opting out instead." They really don't get it. 95% of the time, MGTOW is a choice to bow out, mainly by men who've had a lot of experience with women. That's how us MGTOW guys know the realities of female nature and how the current system encourages and rewards women's female nature run amok. But white knights simply don't want to believe that. They want to believe that there's many, many unicorns out there, even though I personally never seen an actual unicorn itself. They want to believe that they can have a family, a white picket fence, and a dutiful, good wife, and happy, well-adjusted kids. And if you tell them otherwise, you're raining on their parade, and they don't like that. And that's another reason why they lash out and have so much hate for MGTOW. It's as I've always said, attack a person's misguided beliefs, attack their unrealistic dreams, and you'll get a far more hostile reaction than if you attacked what was logical and reasonable. Next, MGTOW existing threatens what blue pill guys have always believed to be true, that they are the quote-unquote pillars of society. They are doing good in the world. They are sacrificing themselves for the good of humanity. They are continuing the noble tradition of real men that has existed for millennia by getting married, having kids, and passing on what they've learned to the next generation. No one should be feeling sorry for them. No one should ridicule them. They are the best, the most righteous of men. If anything, they should be feeling sorry for everybody else. Except we are feeling sorry for them, and we're looking down on them and giving them a hard time and calling them names for doing what everybody and their mother told them they should be doing. And that's getting married, having kids, and passing on what they've learned to the next generation. And that brings me to yet another reason why white knights seem to dislike MGTOW so much. Faux anger, virtue signaling, and superiority. You see, many white knights simply act angry and start shit with MGTOW so that they can feel superior, righteous even. Look at me. I have the right, socially accepted point of view for once. And all those losers over there have the wrong one. Hence, by default, I'm actually a winner for once. Hooray! I think some white knights simply go after MGTOW because they themselves have been bullied, attacked, marginalized, and now they see an opportunity to bully, attack, and marginalize someone else. They finally get to be the person who is in the majority for once and who is doing the bullying instead of being the bullied, the victim, someone who has a voice and whose opinion is accepted and not attacked. They finally get to belong via their faux outrage and virtue signaling to those who have the so-called right opinion. And there are others still who are just self-righteous and get off on being so. Feeling superior, it's like a drug for some. It's highly addictive, and some people really love it and can't get enough of it. And then there are those who are simply frightened of MGTOW and the ideas MGTOW guys put forth. You know, people fear what they don't understand, and many white knight guys simply hear about MGTOW in passing and in turn lash out. You know, it's typical human nature, especially when you consider what MGTOW teaches and how averse most white knights are to such teachings, what with decades of indoctrination, under their belts. Also, when one considers how often MGTOW is misrepresented by the few media outlets that have run stories on it, not to mention the many bloggers and online detractors who portray it inaccurately, is it any surprise that so many people misunderstand it? Fear and repudiation are an easier and safer course for most people. Much safer than just taking the time and effort to research about MGTOW. And finally, you have those men who are envious of MGTOW. Guys who know they made a bad decision. Guys who are at this very moment living in a crap marriage or who are in a crap situation paying alimony to a woman who left them for whatever reason, and she got the kids as well. Guys who are not fully red-pilled and who are bitter and angry about their lot in life. Guys who know they got a raw deal, but they still refuse to accept that it wasn't them, but the system, because they don't want to accept that they will never, ever get what they have been told they can have. And that's a nice, happy family with great, well-adjusted kids. And guys like this, they will lash out at MGTOW guys out of sheer envy. They envy that MGTOW guys saw the trap at some point and got themselves out before getting trapped. Something they didn't do. And no matter how hard they try, they are now stuck in the situation they're in. And it's a crappy situation. So instead of setting pride aside and admitting that they screwed up, instead they double down and make excuses, essentially arguing for the life they chose, regardless of how much harm it has done to them and is still doing. Imagine that. Being so well indoctrinated that you know what's harmed you, yet you continue to argue for its validity and defend it regardless. Not because you believe it in reality, but because you want to believe it. There are good women out there, and I'm going to find one, you wait and see. Talk about a successful ideology. One that screws you over and has you defending it, even when you know it's bad for you. Essentially, once you're in for life. Ah, pride. You gotta love it. It cometh before the fall. In closing, white knights and MGTOW dislike each other for vastly different reasons, though they express their dislike in much the same ways. The differences I see are that white knights tend to go looking for trouble in various corners of the internet as they seek to defame and virtue signal by visiting MGTOW sites and channels, while the MGTOW, they may respond in kind. They don't generally go looking for trouble the same way white knights do. Hence, I do see white knights as more the instigators than MGTOW are. I'm not sure MGTOW help with some of the colorful names they create for white knighters or with the tone with which they talk about white knights, but I see that as more of a reaction than anything else. I mean, smack someone in the face and they're likely to reply with a roundhouse. It's just the nature of reality. I don't equate attacker and defender. One is most certainly worse. As for me personally, I don't hate white knights. I think they're misguided, but I don't feel sorry for them. Not really. I could, and it'd be easy to do so. After all, they are misguided. That said, I think many of them are arrogant men who simply don't pay attention to the very likely and negative consequences of their actions. It's the old, it will never happen to me type hubris I see all too often among these young guys these days. I see it among the old too, everybody really. But the warnings are there. One simply need look at reality to see the warnings all around you. Many guys simply choose to ignore those warnings. Hence, no, I feel no pity for them. Anyways, that's why white knights hate MGTOW and why MGTOW don't like white knights much either. MGTOW see white knights as enablers who are enabling women to continue to disenfranchise men to the detriment of society. And white knights, well, they're offended by the fact that MGTOW guys, the facts, essentially, that MGTOW guys bring to bear. Facts that threaten to poke holes in a white knight's idealized view of the world and cast a light on the very real likelihood that most of them won't get what they want, which is a disconcerting and stark reality to have to look at. After all, what will white knights do to find happiness if they can't find it in having a wife and family? Anyhow, I am the MGTOW Philosopher, and I wish you a good day. Take care.